If men like you and even enjoy your company, but they never step up, this video will explain why. Because unfortunately, everything that we've been taught about dating is completely wrong. Straight up, it does not work. It's not rooted in behavior science. It's not aligned with scripture, and it doesn't result in healthy, happy relationships. I'm Dr. Abby, developmental psychologist turned dating coach, and I had to learn all of this the hard way. I used to date the way that the world taught us to date, and it led to toxic relationship after toxic relationship. And it wasn't until I learned what I'm going to teach you in this video that I was able to finally meet my husband. So here's how I used to date in my 20s. If I liked a man, I would immediately go all in. And I would log in on him before we even got to our first date. And we would get into these texting relationships and situationships, and I'd be chasing them to claim me the whole way. And I would find myself committing emotionally just to prove that I was loyal and hoping that eventually he would choose me because he would see just how nice I am, right? But these men were never really pursuing and courting me. It actually led to me chasing them. And I found myself kind of in this cycle of locking in on a man, being in this long texting relationship, arguing about my desires, over explaining myself, trying to get them to see my side, trying to get them to commit to me, and just spending the whole relationship chasing him to treat me better and love me. Cringe. And like, truth be told, when I look back on it, it's so embarrassing. But I'm sharing all of this so that you can see that I didn't just magic my way into the marriage that I have today with my husband. I had to choose how to date differently in order to meet a better kind of man. And today, I'm married to a man who adores me, who I adore, who is kind, who is loving, who is generous, who pursued me from the beginning. And now we live a beautiful and wonderful, incredible life by the water. You can always see the water behind me. And we are happy and thriving. But I didn't get here by accident. I got here by choosing to do something different about how I was dating. And that's what you're going to learn in this video. It took coming out of an emotionally abusive relationship for me to finally start asking myself, what is it that I'm doing that's leading to these toxic relationships? Why is it that I'm not attracting good men? Because I know good men are out there, so why am I not attracting them? I'm going to give you 3 reasons, and then I'm going to tell you 3 things that you can do to start attracting more quality men. So problem number 1 is I was filtering too fast. And this is an issue that I see a lot, especially with Christian women. Maybe you're on the dating apps, and before you've even gotten off the app, you've already filtered down to one man, right? Like you filtered so much that there's only one guy that you're talking to, and you haven't even met him yet. You haven't even gone on a date. So that's number 1. You're filtering too fast when you don't even know his character yet. And what I found is I would date, and I use that term loosely because we weren't dating. I would date these guys and they would treat me poorly. Their true character would come out and I'd be confused. Like, how could you treat me this way? I thought, what about all your promises? The truth was I didn't know them well enough to be able to be surprised by them treating me poorly. So that's problem number 1. When you filter too much too fast, you actually don't allow yourself to get to know people properly before they get a chance to disappoint you. Problem number 2, instead of dating to evaluate, I was dating to be chosen. So all the men in my 20s that I was talking to, I was chasing them to choose me. When if I had just sat back and thought about it for a second, like, why do I want this guy who doesn't even treat me well? I would have been dating very differently. But because I was dating to be chosen, I allowed them to treat me poorly. I ignored red flags, and I just tried to go full steam ahead with the relationship, even though they were clearly not the right person for me. And problem number 3 was not understanding the importance of rewards in shaping behavior. And this was such an important mindset shift for me, especially as a psychology PhD, because I understood intellectually how when you reward things, people are more likely to do that behavior. And I started to think about, well, what kind of behavior am I rewarding with men? Because I was rewarding inconsistency. When men treated me poorly, I would chase them for their attention. I would chase them for an apology. I would argue and give them my time and my energy. And all of that was actually rewarding this inconsistent behavior instead of placing my focus where I wanted it to go. When you filter too much too fast, when you date to be chosen instead of dating to evaluate, and when you reward the wrong behavior, you unintentionally weed out any quality men that might actually pursue and fill your space with men who will never pursue, never commit, never lead. And the truth is, all of these problems stem from the same root cause, and that is trying to microwave intimacy and skipping the stages of a relationship that neither of you have earned just to get to the end faster. And I'm calling this out because this used to be me. I talk about this in my last video, which I'll link below. But because Christian women were never taught really how to date, we often go from 0 to 100. We're trying to skip to the end, skip to the good part of a healthy, happy, thriving relationship and a marriage without ever learning how to actually go through the steps that it takes to build a healthy relationship in the first place, because true intimacy takes time to build. And I had to learn the hard way that a lot of the confusion and heartache from dating in my 20s came from not respecting the different stages of a relationship. And so I'm going to walk through in this video how to build true intimacy in a way that attracts the kind of man who will lead, pursue, and commit. This is going to fly in the face of everything that you've been taught, and so I hope that you will stick with me to the end as I explain the rationale. Step 1 is to date multiple men until you are exclusive. And I get a lot of pushback from this, especially from Christian women, because we were taught that we needed to focus on one person at a time. But it's this focus on one person from the very beginning that makes women overinvested emotionally and then allow him to cross boundaries physically, which also makes us more emotionally invested because our bodies are releasing chemicals that make us want to bond and attach to this person that we barely even know. And this societal expectation that we're meant to just date one man at a time actually leads to women being placed in the position of the chaser and the person trying to lock down the relationship. When if you were to date multiple men until you are exclusive, that's the key. Like, you're not exclusive yet, so stop exclusively dating him. It keeps you emotionally neutral while you properly vet him, because ultimately you don't know his character yet. You don't know if you're compatible yet. You don't know if his words and his actions are consistent because there hasn't been enough time that has passed to be able to evaluate that yet. But when you have proper emotional and physical boundaries with men and you sit back and allow them to reveal to you who they are while they pursue you, you then get a chance to decide if you want to be in a relationship with him or not. My husband and I were getting to know each other as friends when he asked to kiss me, and I said yes. And the next time that I saw him, I was kind of like, is he going to ask me out? And he tried to kiss me the next time that I saw him. And I kind of swerved. I was like, well, what's going on? Like, how come you haven't asked me out? And it was in me setting that physical boundary that he admitted that he was aware that I was expecting him to ask me out. But he had thought about it a lot and decided against asking me out because he didn't want to go down that path. At the time, I was on the academic job market, and he was like, well, in a year, she could move across the country. So there's no point in starting a relationship if she's going to move in a year, which is fair. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, cool. We can be friends, and I don't kiss my friends. Ultimately, sometimes men are not pursuing because you haven't required them to. And I required him in that moment to either pursue or leave me alone. The next day, he then apologized and admitted that he wanted to pursue a relationship with me. But had I allowed him to just kiss me, even though he wasn't pursuing me, I could have ended up in another situationship. It was because I wasn't completely locked in on one man in the early stages that I was able to observe their behavior and decide if I want to follow instead of chasing him to claim me. So he had a choice to step up and pursue me, and I had a choice back to commit in exclusivity to him. So that's number 1. Dating multiple men until you're exclusive allows you to remain emotionally neutral. And it also forces men to step up to pursue you if they want to have your time, your energy, your attention, and physical access to you. That's a whole other training. But the second reason that this step is important is because your exclusivity has actual value as a woman. Your exclusive time, energy, and attention, your exclusive feelings toward him, any amount of time that you're putting toward a man is time you're not spending doing something else. And if you're in your 20s or your 30s and you desire to have children, your time is a real valuable asset, and you can't just give that away. Because according to research, men don't even value what is given away to them. And so I want you to really think about exclusivity as a value that you bring to the relationship that has to be earned by him for him and for you. I used to think in my 20s that if I just proved that I was loyal, it would make men want to commit. Men do not value the things that they don't work for. And whether we like it or not, that's just the way that they're wired. But also, it's when you're exclusive with a man who's not treating you well that you find yourself losing your mind trying to make him change or treat you better. I didn't have to do that when I was dating in my 30s because I allowed men to be exactly who they were going to be. My husband didn't want to ask me on a date, and I didn't have to argue with him or debate with him or fight with him about it or be like, how could you? What about the promises? There were no promises. I was like, cool. You don't want to ask me on a date? That's totally cool. We can be friends. And I don't kiss my friends. So it allows you to set proper, healthy boundaries so that if a man wants additional access to you, he has to step up to pursue. One of the biggest objections that I get to this step of dating multiple men until you're exclusive is it feels dishonest. When the reality is, if you're not exclusive, it means you're not in a relationship. And so there shouldn't be any expectation of relationship activity, including exclusivity. He needs to earn that right. And the second objection I get is, well, it's already hard enough talking to one man. And to that I say, that's because you're doing too much. I used to also find it exhausting just to talk to one man because we were on the phone all day long, texting all day long. I was putting all my time, my energy, and attention thinking of this man all day long. And so when you're doing that, of course it's hard to think about doing that with more than one person. The solution isn't to be exclusive with one person. It's to pull back on what you're doing in the early phases of a relationship. When you haven't gone on a date yet, why are we on the phone all day? If you've gone on even 1 or 2 dates, why are we on the phone all day? Pull back on how much you're texting and talking and engaging with any one person in the early phases so that you can actually observe his behavior over time. And this means that you need to practice self-control. The reason that I had so much trouble with this first step in the past is because I was going all in emotionally and all in physically because I was not practicing self-control. So it's important to practice self-control, have healthy boundaries, and allow men to show you who they are before you commit to an exclusive relationship with them. I break down my entire dating strategy in my course, Attract the Right Godly Man, so you can check it out in the link below. The second step to attracting men who lead, pursue, and commit is to shift from, does he like me, to, do I like him? I used to ignore my own desires, my own needs, my intuition, and I would make men the main character in my story. So constantly thinking about like, what is he like and what is he thinking and what is he feeling and trying to analyze their behavior. But in my 30s, I realized, why am I chasing men to love me that I don't even like to begin with? If they treat me so poorly, why do I want him in the first place, right? And I remember dating this guy who, for a while, I was like, oh, why doesn't he like me? Why isn't he pursuing me? And then I realized, why do I want a man who treats me this way? Why do I want a man who literally discarded me after saying I love you early in our relationship and all of a sudden I can't get a text back? Why do I want that? Once I made that shift, that man started coming back around over and over. I kept having to tell him no. But I had to have that standard for myself to say, I have to decide, like, do I actually like his behavior? Do I like the way that I'm being treated? And if I don't, then you no longer have access to me. And when you raise your floor for how men are going to treat you, the right man will rise to meet it too, and the rest of them will just fall away. Unfortunately, we live in a society that literally trains women from birth to overgive to men, to overgive to everybody, right? We're constantly being told to prioritize men's needs over our own. How many Christian women are told, like, just date this guy, he's a nice guy, give him a chance? No one would ever tell a man, just date her, she's a nice girl, just give her a chance. No one expects men to date a woman that they're not attracted to, but we expect women to do that because we don't care about women's needs in our society. That's just the real sad story about it. I used to focus entirely on, does he like me? And I would be analyzing his behavior. Why is he doing this? Is it because of this trauma in his childhood? Is it because he's a narcissist? Is it because this horoscope sign? Is it because whatever attachment style? None of that was necessary. All I needed to do was start asking myself, do I like the way that I'm being treated? And then decide if I want to give a man my time, energy, and attention who doesn't treat me the way that I want to be treated. So those are the first 2 steps. If you want to attract a man who leads, pursues, and commits, you need to date multiple men until you are exclusive And you need to shift from does he like me to do I like him? And the third thing that you need to do is to give the relationship room to grow. I used to want clarity and commitment early, but all that did was make me chase men for commitment and make me try to change him later because he wasn't actually what I wanted, but I wasn't actually vetting these men. And I think this is a struggle that a lot of Christian women have where we're trying to go from 0 to 100, right? Like we just want the right man to fall out of the sky and for us to know right away. Because when you know, and love at first sight, and all these societal messages that tell us that like relationships just fall out of the sky, essentially. But the truth is, we are told biblically to not despise the small beginnings. And relationships take time to grow, and you have to be planting seeds for them to grow, and you have to take time to water that seed to watch it grow. It doesn't just come fully planted, right? It takes time to get to know a man's character. And oftentimes, by rushing into exclusivity and focusing on if he likes you instead of whether you like him, you're actually not taking the time that it takes to get to know his character properly. Once I understood this principle, it allowed me to just actually observe who was pursuing me and how they were pursuing me, and then decide which relationship I wanted to opt into. So it actually took 7 months for me to commit to my husband in a relationship. Like we were dating for those first 7 months or friends, but we weren't in an exclusive relationship until about 7 months in. But I didn't have to pressure him for anything. I didn't have to change him in any way. I just got to observe who he really wanted to be and decide if I wanted to commit to him or not. And now I'm in a relationship with someone who chooses to show up as he shows up every day without me having to chase him for it. One of the biggest mistakes that I see women make when they're dating is, like I said, going from 0 to 100 and trying to skip the process of developing a relationship by what I call microwaving intimacy. People simply don't want to go through the process that it takes to actually build a healthy relationship. I hear so many people say, well, I hate small talk. And I'm like, you can't just jump from 0 to 100. How are you going to get to the deeper talk if you won't engage in the quote unquote small talk? Do not despise the small beginnings. It's in allowing yourself to go through the process of developing the relationship that you get to the intimacy in the first place. The second thing I hear at this step is something like, well, the right man will just know right away, right? When you know, you know. And I think I think it's true that when you know, but expecting him to know after one day is very unrealistic. Sometimes when you know, and it takes 7 months to know, right? It takes time to get to know somebody. And we need to allow ourselves to get to know people and to allow them to get to know us before we commit in a relationship with them. So if you're looking for instant sparks and like a heavens opening and a moment when it comes to dating, you're going to really struggle because that's not typically how it works. That's the exception, not the rule. The next thing that I hear is something like, well, if I don't move things forward, nothing will happen. And to that, I say, if you want a man who's going to be able to lead you and pursue you, why are you trying to make things happen? He has to be the one to decide if he's going to pursue you or not. And then you decide if you want to be pursued by him. But if you try to move things forward, well, we saw what happened in Genesis 3 when women tried to take control and men abdicated their responsibility. When my husband wasn't asking me out, I could have very much been like, well, he's not moving things forward. Maybe I should, say something. Maybe I should drag him along. Maybe I should get him to ask me out. I didn't do any of that. I just watched his behavior. And when he tried to kiss me, I had to swerve it and be like, hold on, like, I don't kiss my friends. What's going on? So it's important that you allow him to do what he would do naturally. And then you decide if you want to pursue, if you want a man who's going to lead and pursue. But the biggest mistake that I see Christian women making at this phase is waiting while the man makes a decision about you. And that is the most disempowering place to be. I talk to so many women who have been in situationships or talking phases where they're just waiting for the man to make a decision about them. And it's like you have a choice about what you're opting into. And you don't need to allow any man to waste your life. A man will waste your time for as long as you let him. And so you have to decide what kinds of behaviors from him you're going to reward with your time, your energy, and your attention. If he's not moving the relationship forward, you don't have to spend your time, energy, and attention with him. So that day that my husband said that he didn't want to ask me out because he wasn't sure if I'd be moving, I was like, cool, we can be friends. And also, I don't kiss my friends, but let's hang out as friends. And we spent that day hanging out and watching a movie and making banana bread. And the whole time he's trying to like get close to me. And I'm like pulling away because I'm just like, don't touch me. Like, we're friends, right? And I remember when I got in my car to leave that evening, and he was kind of hanging on the side of my door and he wouldn't let me, I think my window was open, or no, he had my door open. He wouldn't close my door and let me drive off. And I was like, okay, like, I'll see you later. And he said to me, why do I feel like I'm not going to see you again? And I said, again, I'm happy to be friends. If you want to hang out again, just let me know. And if I'm not busy, because I'll be dating, but if I'm not busy, I'm happy to see you again. And his response was, I don't like the sound of that. And I'm like, I can't help you, right? Like, that it is what it is. And at the end of the day, I had a choice about whether to spend my time, energy, and attention with someone who wasn't asking me on dates, who wasn't pursuing me. And I chose to protect my time, energy, and attention and save it for people who were going to actually pursue. And I was very clear about this upfront, which meant that he had a choice to step up or step out, and he chose to step up. I promise you, it is so worth it to raise your bar and allow the right man to either step up or step out. Because if you lower your bar for the men down here and allow them to waste and drain your time, energy, and attention, that doesn't allow you to make room for the kind of man who would lead, pursue, and commit. The bottom line is that true intimacy takes time to build, and confusion and heartache comes from not respecting each phase of the relationship. So when you're in those early phases of the relationship, it's really important that you understand that you're in a season of vetting, not committing to the man yet. If you want a full breakdown of how to date in a way that attracts quality men, I'll put the link below. And in my next video, I'm going to break down how do you actually meet quality men in the first place. So you don't want to miss it. Go ahead and subscribe.